Hello and good evening. This is Midnight Coder. I am Glabe, and in this stream, we are going to create a brand new job project. And sorry, I'll close the door there. Sorry about that. So, welcome. In tonight's live stream, we will be creating a new Java project with the Spring framework, and we will be designing a database first, which is going to be based around a player. We're going to create a player object, which will be represented by a POJO or a plain old Java object, which we will be mapping to a database so that we can store our players' information and persist it. After that, we're going to create a service layer where we will be able to interact with that database and uh, make some calculations and change our data object into a data transfer object so that we can pass it amongst the other layers of our web application, as well as to be able to pass it over the network as a data object. We're going to use Spring Boot for this because that will make creating a RESTful API very easy. After we've created this RESTful API, um, we're then going to create a Discord bot. The Discord bot will contain the Discord bot itself is going to be our game client, if you will. It will be the thing that our end user will use to manipulate or to interact with their player file within our universe. Now, the player will use slash commands, input forms, uh, select models, like drop down menus, and as ways to interact with our application. They will the Discord bot will make API calls to our database or to our web service and to request some information, to which it take that information, validate it, manipulate it in any way that needs to be done, and then it will essentially send a request back to the web server to persist the information that has happened. Now, Spring makes this ridiculously easy, and if you know and understand Java, and simply how Java allows you to create a POJO and say pass it to another object the um, within your regular standalone application. Uh, what up, Steve? Good to see you here again. The Spring framework allows us to, and it's not just the Spring framework, there are other frameworks out there. If you're a Kotlin user, you can use the Ktor. Um, I just so happen to be a Java user, so I use Spring and Spring Boot. Um, so this allows us to make it this makes it very easy for us to take a regular POJO and pass it over the network as a JSON string or JSON object and retrieve it on the other end. It works. It's very similar to those if you're familiar with a gaming network and where you will typically use something like the Netty framework or something like that, where you would make a packet, compile it to this compressed encoded packet, and fire it over a network, and yada yada yada, catch it on the other end, decrypt it, and handle it. This is very much the same way, but it just lets you to do that with just straight up POJO objects as the payload, if you would. And because you're using HTTP, you can use things like headers to add in elements like access keys such as web tokens, JOT tokens, or JWT. So that way you can also validate that this is a valid request coming from a valid trusted source before looking to read and execute payload. Um, it's very much six in one hand, half a dozen in the other. Um, Depends on your style of coding. I come from a background where I've used both styles, doing both things. I have a wide variety of, a wide sort of a spread of a background. Um, this is the most bare bones basic way to do it. I'm not looking to make this ultra fancy and secure and implement like OAuth and single sign-ons, and like I'm not looking to make this complex as hell. I'm just simply looking to make something very simple to get those software developers out there to get their feet wet in web development. Because truly, with the way the industries and the world is going, standalone applications are sort of falling away to the wayside for those more cloud-based or web apps, as you will, because these are um, more friendly on the hardware. More people don't have to install software to do these things. So typically, most industry standards are usually aiming towards um, a more, I guess, cloud-based way to go, if you will. I have a hard time accepting the whole cloud base because I still see everything as a machine somewhere running something somewhere. Like to me, it's a VPS, somebody's VPS running or a dedicated server running. That's just using RESTful API to execute shit. But we call them clouds apparently. Um, so yeah, this video we're gonna create a database on. I will talk a little bit more about how this takes away all the SQL aspects of code, and you don't have to know SQL in order to map objects to a database, take objects from a database. Um, Spring Data and Spring Data JPA take away all that extra load. So to start out, excuse me. So to start out, we're gonna make a new project. And I realize now that you can't see what I'm doing. So unfortunately, you can't see what I'm doing, um, but I am just creating a brand new. I'm creating a new Spring Initializer project. I'm just choosing a few basics. Okay. So we're gonna be doing a few things here in a minute. Just once that loads up, I'm just gonna come in here to okay. So there's going to be a few things that we're going to be doing in here. We're going to make a couple of modules. These are just going to be straight up module. This first one I'm going to make is going to be Discord. Again, I realize you can't see what I'm doing, but I simply went into right click module, new module, and choosing new module on the top left. No no generators, just a straight up new module. Giving it a name of Discord. The location is leaving it alone. Language, Java, build, Maven. Giving it Java SDK 17. Parent module is the Dis role-playing game. No sample code. The advanced is the same XYZ Glave Studios. Artifact is Discord. Boom. Now it made a new artifact. I'm going to leave that alone. Let that index. Okay, and next new module. This one here is going to be an HTTP API. Everything else is the same. Everything else can be left alone. Okay, and we're going to do another one. Create another module. This one is going to be HTTP network. This network one is going to contain things that are shared between both projects, such as DTO objects. This will make it easier so that we're not rewriting multiple things at the same time. Or actually, no, sorry. That's going to be where we're going to put Glave Studios. We're going to put an HTTP shared for all the shared files. No, no, you know what? We'll put them both in the network. No, shared. It's probably just better. Okay, so we're gonna stick some things in the shared, some things in this, and things in that, this and there, and who's and a what's and a where's and a why's. Alright, so this first one here, we can get rid of that. We don't need that source file. Delete. We don't need you. Alright, so this will be the one that's going to contain all of our Discord related code. This will contain the API. Will contain our basically our Spring Boot application. This will contain all the files and whatnot where we're going to be dumping in to create. Sorry, I haven't had enough coffee today. This is going to be the section where we're going to be making the Spring Boot application, and it will contain the files for our RESTful API, as well as the database connections and calls and service layers, and yada yada yada. Network is going to basically be the library, if you will, or module that the Discord is going to rely on in order to make network calls, such as it's going to contain our way of making, first and foremost, to make get and post requests, and and then we will make interfaces in there for which we will specify for things like creating a profile. It's going to handle taking in the basic information and creating the actual profile object to which um, it will then post that request. Or say if it's maybe looking to fetch for information like a backpack, we'll have a backpack network interface where it will handle things like going and getting the backpack, updating the object, sending it, uh, such things like that. But it will, through inheritance, be taking advantage of the network class. The shared file is going to contain all of the DTO objects, as well as any sort of other potentially shared files, such as utility files like loggers and other sort of utility classes and interfaces that we're going to create as well. That way we're not rewriting too many things in too many places, because basically by the end of this, the idea is that we will be exporting the Discord module to HR, which will require the network and the shared. And we will be exporting the API to HR that will also require the shared file. Um, that makes sense to everybody? Great. And we'll simply be building these over the next couple of live streams. Obviously, we're not going to get everything done in this today, but I did want to just get some of this up and on the channel. So to start things out, we're going to be needing to build a bit of a player, because we're going to need, when somebody first joins our bot, they're going to be looking to create themselves a profile. So we're going to look to have a way to we're going to look to see if we can have a way in order to create a profile, a player's profile, uh, as well as we're going to need to I'm not that great at explaining things before I do shit, but this is why I go live from time to time. Alright, so we're going to make a new package first and foremost, xyz.collab studios. Um, You gotta go pee, dude? Oh, okay. You gotta go pee, man? I'll go back. I'll be back. I gotta go take my dog out to pee. Sorry about that. So, now we've got a Spring Boot application up, and we are looking to so now the other thing I'm going to tell this is a component scan. And simply what this is it tells it which which domains to look for when it's going through. Oh, okay, never mind. Apparently it's already going through the basic one. Unless that must be something relatively newer, because in the old 3.0.2, you actually had to throw a component scan in there in order for it to know where to search for different beans and whatnot. Okay, cool. Well, um, well, my next thing I'm going to look to be doing then is we're going to build a resources, and we're going to build a build. Oh, okay, slow down. We're going to need to make an application, application.properties. Okay, so application.properties. In here, we are going to be setting up a few different things, and I've done this 1,001 times on a few different, pretty much on almost every video I've done. So I'm just going to kind of copy and paste some settings into here just to make this a little bit easier. So we're setting the port to 8080. That would be when people go to localhost colon 8080. By default, if it's 80, you don't need to put colon 80. But because this is a sort of a development port, 8080 is typically the default for most Spring Boot applications. We are going to be disabling the um, white label error page, select the default error page in favor of, we'll write our own later. Logging, we're setting this to info, so we're not looking to get all of the different types of potential errors or printouts that could happen. We're only interested in getting the informative ones. Also for our H2 database, we are setting up the console to true. This is just going to be so that we can have a SQL console to go look at. The path is going to be the localhost. Oh. Sorry, excuse me. Localhost /server port, or sorry, localhost http /localhost : server port /acp. Um, that's going to be where we're going to go to get to our admin control panel. We are not looking to trace the settings, and as well as we are allowing others at this point. I'm actually going to go ahead and remove that because by default it's not. That was on a previous thing I was doing where I was looking to be. Anyway, our data source. So setting up our data source, that's going to set it up to a JDBC connecting type. It's an H2 database type, which happens to be that of a file. The address for that file is going to be /database/warehouse. Our driver is going to be that of the H2 driver, and our username and password is super secure. Now our JPA, or the Java Persistence API, this here is going to have a little bit of information as well. So we're not looking to open in a view. We want our platform to be that of the H2 dialect, and the DLL option we want is update. We use update in development because it basically just simply. Oh my god. Excuse me. There are a few different options within that that are available. Not just update. There is validate, which is generally used for production period or production models. That is because validate just simply validates the schema and it doesn't make any sort of changes to the database whatsoever. You can create, which is usually good for a testing environment. Create will create the schema at the start, and then it will destroy any data at the end of the application's life. Whereas there's a create hyphen drop will simply create the database and the schema, and then it will drop that database and schema at the end of every session. Again, those two are both used basically for testing. I would use the test in the testing model when I'm building something new and I'm not sure what names I'm going with or what I'm going with for a scheme. I'll usually use create and drop so that I can edit my Pojo to get it just right. Maybe I forgot something or this or that, whatever. But to make generally, if I'm looking to sort of test like a framework or like a model framework or a blueprint, I'll use create and drop. And then if I'm looking to just straight up test my data, to just make sure that my data logically works, I'll typically use create as the option, because that will allow me to just create the database every time I run the application. So like every time I run a test, I would want to create the table. Update simply updates the schema only if necessary. So usually when I'm just developing or I'm more working on the business side of code or the business logic of code, that is where I will generally use the update method. So in our case, I'm going to stick with just update over the rest of them. There is also a none option, which just doesn't do anything, and that's merely if you're handling. Oh my god. Inside of resources, there is generally two other packages. One is static, um, and the other is templates. Templates is the place where all of your HTTP or your HTML templates are typically held, and that's usually when you're building things that use like time leaf, and you're using like an HTML engine to what most people are familiar with is Java servlet pages, um, or JSPs. Um, time leaf is basically those, but modernized. That's about as simple as I can say that. It's clearly more powerful, but like it's like comparing a 1990s car to the exact same car, but of a newer model, like a 2023. It's the same fucking thing. It's just newer, more modern, more efficient, better overall than the older tech that we used to use. And yeah, that's about all I can say to that. But now, if you were to go into static, those are files that are loaded statically when the application is run. So that would be where you would put things like images, CSS files, scripts, um, or also DLL files like your .schema, your .sql, if you were looking to pre-populate a database um, with information. Now, so we have a way to run the web application. Now, we need a way to like map out some of the data in it. So, we're going to create a data package as well as a model. Inside the data, we're going to create another package, and this one is going to be the repositories or the repos. That's going to basically be a database, if you will, so to speak. Um, so let's make a model. This model, we're going to call it player profile. Okay, so now let's say, for example, you want to be able to save this player's information to a database. You don't understand exactly how to write SQL, um, but you want to know how to create a new table and then create columns in that table, and then you want to know how to create the data or how to import the data into that um, table, into the right columns, and you want to know how to update it. And, well, let's fill up our profile with some information. So our player is going to have a username. We'll say they're going to have an email address. They're going to have an encrypted password. We're going to have a way to track when the profile was created, when it was updated. So they're going to have a username, an email, a password. What else would typically would a player typically have? Well, technically this is a player profile, not the actual player's gamer profile. Well, we can think of more information, we can add that into here later on. But now, how could I map all of this to some SQL code so that it's ridiculously easy to save and get it from a database? How can we do that? Well, just like that. Now, what this is doing, make a couple of getters and setters for this. So this is going to take care of the get username, get email, get encrypted, get this, get that, set this, set that, set that. Get rid of the boilerplate code. Two annotations. This entity one, what does that do? Well, entity um, makes this into a persistable data. So we change this into an ID, so we can set this up so this could be the primary key. Um, Now, by default, we can tell this at table, um, and we can give this a name, for example, or a schema. And but let's keep it simple. By default, hey Zig, what's up? Glad to have you here. Um, so by default, Spring Data JPA will actually take player profile and uppercase everything, and that will be the name of your table. Same thing with everything down here. It will actually separate these based on camel case, putting an underscore, and then uppercasing them, and creating those as your table names. So basically takes away all the need to know and understand what SQL is and how to use it. You don't need to. If you're a beginner at code and trying to learn for a new time, for the first time, it's generally best to learn from a single programming language and then try to learn other languages. Because once you understand how to read a language, you can understand how to write a language. Once you understand how to read and write a single language, all of the other languages follow a very simple and similar process. So it's much easier. So, for example, if you're looking to learn Java, I highly recommend you stick with learning Java as much as you can with just plain old Java. Once you understand it in and out enough that you can understand it, you'll be able to start understanding how to read other languages just as easy. And then by reading other languages, you'll eventually understand how to write other languages. So I'm going to keep this aimed again at the most basic. So keeping this as just close to just Java code as can be, you don't just by adding that entity from the Jakarta persistence library, um, you're simply able to take a POJA or a plain old Java object, and now we're able to map that to a database. And how do we do that? We're going to go ahead and create a JPA repository. We'll select that sorry. So this here tells us the entity is player profile, which is the one that we just clicked on. And it's going to go ahead and create a player profile repository. It's going to use a JPA repository. We could also create a CRUD repository or other repositories as well, but for now we're just going to do it with JPA. And the packaging is going to be our repository packaging. And once we go ahead and complete that, I used a tool for that, the JPA tool. However, you can't see my overlays for some reason when I'm recording this. So this creates a public interface, which is player profile repository, which extends the JPA repository, which takes in basically a hash map of a data book, what the data object is, and along is the ID that we're looking to track that with, that long being the UID here. So now let's say we wanted to make a way to get this based on username. So how do we write a SQL query to select the table based on one of the table values? Well, you know SQL. You just need to know that create a Spring data method will allow you to create to search for an instance. This is going to be an optional. It's going to be searching by username, and we want it to ignore the case. So we literally just tell our interface that we have an optional type of player profile, which is in here, and we want to find by, and now the beauty about Spring Boot is that it allows us to find this by the variable names. So the very fact that we have this named username, we just use username here. And that will then in Spring days I'm tripping over my tongue here. And Spring will understand that it wants to use the find by, and it is you can make this into whatever this is, and you can tell it whether you want it to ignore case or not. If you don't pass in ignore case to that, then it's going to just simply assume that you want it case sensitive. And then you simply pass in the name of the variable that you're looking to do. Now let's say I wanted to do this and their email address matches an email address. I can actually start typing out and, or even if I wanted to order these by, like say I wanted to, if there was more than one username, I could actually order them by a specific variable, which would basically do a sort. I really wish this would catch the pop-up so that I could show that and explain it more. But anyway, this will now allow us to access the, um, this is the database or the data model, or like the table that's going to be in our base, which I will also bring up over here to show in a moment too. Actually, let's just run this application. I'm just going to run this right quick, let it build itself so that I can jump out of it and go into. There we go. Okay. So my data source is an H2 data source. Unfortunately, you really can't see this, which I wish you could. Didn't create profile. Okay, well, there it is. There we go. Okay, so. Oh, fuck you, you miserable. Sorry. There we go. Okay, so database player profile. So see here where it took the player profile, it used camel casing to space it out, put an underscore, uppercase. That was the table name. Columns did the same thing. UID, uppercase. Username, created on. Anything with a camel case was then had a space, put where the camel case is, and up and just uppercased. Crazy simple. And we did all that without even touching a letter of SQL. It's truly a great. It's truly a great framework. Got like 5 things on the go at once here right now. Alright, so some other things that we're going to look to be um, saving and persisting on here is going to be some skills. There's going to be a list of skills that the player can potentially have. Okay. Now, in order for us to do, well, in order for us to save some skills, we're going to need to know some information. Um, Alright, I gotta run to the bathroom, so I will be back in just a moment. I do really apologize. And I'm back. Alright, now where were we? Alright, so there's our data object. We can create a few more data. Hello there. Welcome to the. Oh, excuse me. Welcome to the street. To the stream. Okay, so there's going to be a couple of uncached things that we're not going to store. This is going to be an enum or an enumeration, um, which I'm just going to call skills for now. Um, I'm not exactly set on that, but it is what it is. Now, what am I doing here now? How am I going to do this? Okay, cool. So there's going to be our skills for the game. Um, yeah, so there's going to be hit points, which will determine um, basically your health. There's going to be your defense skill, so how well you can defend against things or wear a bit different armor. Attack is going to be your melee. That's going to judge whether or not you're skilled enough to equip a specific sword or melee weapon. Um, the melee weapon, of course, will determine, I suppose, the amount of damage you can do. Magic, that's going to move sort of go based off the skills that you're able to do, as well as judge the magical equipment that you're able to wield. Um, Range, same idea. That's going to judge the level of ranged equipment you can do, as well as how accurate you are with a bow. Same with your magic, how accurate you are with a sword or with a spell, and how accurate you are with a sword, as well as things. Crafting is going to be just so that you can craft different armors, items, weapons, things like that. Blacksmithing is going to take care of things like smithing ores into bars, bars into tools. Fishing is obvious. Mining is going to be for mining for those ores the blacksmith use. Um, Fire making, you'll be able to burn different logs for a longer period of time and higher levels of logs, different types of wood for different longer periods of time. Cooking, you'll be able to cook the fish that you catch, as well as, I suppose, other sorts of cooking. Botany is going to be sort of working with herbs in nature so that you can work with plants to, say, make potions and whatnot. Woodcutting is just so you can cut down the different trees. Obviously, the higher you are, the better the weapon you can use, the better the axe, the better the axe, the sharper the axe, the more efficient you're going to be, yada yada yada. Survivalist, this is going to take care of things. I feel like that kind of takes away from raking. Okay, so we're gonna get rid of fire raking and leave just survivalist, because survivalist is gonna take care of things like um, making fires. I want to say like identifying herb, but that's kind of botany as well. But like so, survivalist. I don't know. Okay, we'll leave fire making and we'll just cut survivalist out for now. We'll just stop at wood cutting. Um, Now we're gonna make a public. Oh, a public void on here. Actually, no, I don't need to put that in there. That's just going to be our skills. So player profile is also going to have a private skills um, that we'll pick at a later time as well. Player is also going to have a okay, so let me just rename a few things here right quick. Get rid of this, rename the file to that, come back into here, enable to fix that should apply. There we go. So this is going to be another entity. Um, Getter, setter. Okay, so we're going to go with the ID, generated value. The generated value is going to be equal to auto. Okay, so player skills. This is going to simply be um, a skill and an experience. Now our player is this is where it's fun. Okay, so private collection of player skills. Okay, so now we can't have a collection because it needs to be a basic attribute. So in here, we need to make this a one to many because this one profile is going to have many skills. And now, jumping back into here, this is going to have a private player profile. Hey Steve, welcome back, man. Now this one here is going to have an many to one relation. We're going to jump back to this, and this is going to be mapped by profile. The fetch is going to be that. The fetch type is going to be that of eager. And now, if you're wondering what the whole fetch type is, there's eager and there's lazy. The difference between the and the best way I'm going to compare this is Grand Theft Auto. Can you remember the days of early Grand Theft Auto when you're racing down the street, you're getting away from the cops, they're hot on your ass, everything is plenty of busy, there's cops behind you, there's helicopters, there's army tanks, everything's coming at you, and then you hit a loading screen. Please wait. Then all of a sudden things pick up and go again. That, my friends, is lazy loading. That's loading things on demand as they're needed when they come. Now, these games where they have more memory, more power, and they don't require a loading screen because they load things eagerly. They load it all before or at the original time. So it's like, that's pretty much the simplest way I can think of to describe eager and lazy loading, is like a video game. If you're busy doing something and hit a loading screen while the content loads, whether it be Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, Grand Theft Auto, or Perfect Dark, GoldenEye, whatever you're doing, you're running through a game and you hit a loading screen. That's lazy loading. That's done when there's not really enough memory in the game or in the application to be able to handle loading all of that information at the get-go when that first profile is called. Because now if I call a call to the profile, it's going to fetch all of the profile skills as well once I call the profile. I'm not going to wait for me to ask for the skills to go get them. It's just going to simply go get them when I request a profile. That is what eager does. Just goes and gets it when it all loads up. So if your application is large and there's a lot of yeah, right, I know. But I mean, like, if you're that's the best way I can think of to describe the difference between eager and lazy loading. If you ever need to know what that is, it's basically one is loaded eagerly when the first initial object is called, and the other is lazy loading, that is that loading screen. So if you ever played RuneScape and you're coming through, because Java can't handle loading that entire world map or like too many chunks at a time. If you're running around and get hit with that loading screen, boom, loading, please wait. That again is lazy loading. But again, for our purposes here, we want to load this eagerly, and we make the initial connection of one to many on this side, and we make the many to one on this side. This way we have a way to connect both together. That is how we map one table to another database table with Spring. Now, typically this would require a good chunk of code in SQL to get one thing and fetch another thing and go through. But again, Spring Data, Spring JPA make things very easy. And because this is only loading one profile, having many skills, that's how you know you want a one-to-many mapping. And when we're in here, we have a many-to-one mapping, because this here can be there can be many of these mapped out to one database or one profile. Other things that we're going to do here is later on going to create a database of items, and we're going to have a way to map items to inventories, and an inventory will be mapped to a profile, or like, well, a harder thing. So like, the player's going to have multiple types of inventories. There's going to be a bank inventory. There's going to be a player's worn equipment inventory. There's going to be a player's backpack inventory. Those three inventories are going to be stored in three inventories, three separate tables that are going to be sort of inherently linked together. And so again, when we create, because every time you ever see an item, it's going to be in a container, whether it be a store's inventory, whether it be a player's inventory, whether it be a wherever you find it, it's going to be in some sort of an inventory container. So items will be connected to inventories, whereas inventories will be an inherited solid object or whatever that is, and like the backpack and the this and that um, will all be connected again with a player profile. So if you're looking to make a database for your own game, um, this is sort of how we would go about that. Yeah, if you guys are liking the stream, please hit that like button so that it helps me know that I'm doing something right. And also, if you like my way of teaching or my style of teaching, please subscribe to me. I have a lot of other videos out there teaching, and I have plans to make so much more. I love to teach, so if you love to learn, please hit that subscribe button, and I will be your mentor. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and do this easier. We're going to go ahead and make a JPA entity. I'm just going to call this new entity is going to be item. And now item is very vague because an item can be an equipment, it can be a tool, it can be a consumable. Item itself is very vague. It's just going to contain the very bare bones basic. Um, so let's go ahead and create. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and create this. We're going to go ahead and get the @id @generated value strategy. This one's going to be identity. And this one's going to have an item ID as its long variable, because it's only going to be one item. That's all it's going to be. Now, private string item name, private item description. Let's go with item weight. Oh, son of a bitch. Private boolean item tradable. This one here, we're going to make another one called inventory. Getter, setter, entity, public abstract class. Okay, so this one here, I'm mapping the inventory items based on the container, which is again here. So the item is going to be the item. Item ID is going to be the unique ID that will provide that. We're going to give it an item name, a description, a weight, as well as a variable of whether or not the item is tradable. I'm also throwing on in there when it was created and updated, just for database tracking reasons, so we can track whenever this items that we have was mapped or was updated. And as far as player profiles go, only one inventory will contain one item. However, however many items. Okay, we'll come up with that idea when we get there. We're also going to add in the item values so that the item has some sort of worth. And again, now when the database goes to create these, JPA will know that a long is going to be converted to what's known as a big int. If we take a look over here, it turns strings into a character varying 255 or a char var 255. Any sort of a long identifier gets changed into a big int. So if you do know SQL, that's how it maps it. If you don't know SQL, don't worry about it. Learn Java first, get one language under your belt, and then expand into other languages, because it'll be so much easier to walk before you run. So right now we have a way to store what a player profile is, which the player profile is also going to contain a backpack. Now this is getting a one-to-one mapping because one player is going to have one backpack. Simple as that. So now we jump back into the player profile, and we're almost copying this. Oh, yeah, right, I have this as a collection. My bad. There we go. So this is going to have a one-to-one mapping to the player profile, to the player backpack. So, player backpack, player backpack. This is going to be mapped by profile, and it is a one-to-one mapping because only one player is going to have one backpack. Next thing, we're going to basically do the same thing for a bank and in equipment. So, quite literally, we're going to copy this and go player, call it player equipment, and it's quite literally going to be the same thing. And we're going to make another one for a player bank, which is again quite literally going to be the exact same thing. So now we're going to dive back into here, copy this, duplicate that 2 times. Okay, one's going to be the player equipment, and the other is going to be the player bank. We'll call that player bank and player equipment. Boom, there we go. So now our player profile has a username, email, password. It has a set of skills. It has a backpack, equipment, and bank. What else does our player need? Trying to think of what else we need right now. Welcome to the stream, Yen. Glad to have you here. If you're enjoying yourself and you like the way I teach, please hit that like button. If you want to check out other videos that I have, you can always check out my channel or subscribe for other content. I think for now that's good enough here. Be able to kind of tie some things together and so we're going to need to, I guess, make a player profile or player service class next, which will handle creating the action of creating a new player object, which will take in like a username, email, and password, and then it will generate the rest of things. Okay. Well, so this live stream is getting a little bit long. We're almost creeping up on the 2 hour mark. We're at 1 hour and 24 minutes, or 1 hour and 42 minutes. Wow, I read that backwards. What do you guys think? Should we keep on going, or should we wrap it up for tonight and pick up where we left off tomorrow evening? I will be downloading this video afterward to post it as part of the Midnight Coder played series, so that it can be watched again. But yeah. Sorry about that, guys. I was just replying to a guy on. Well, I was replying to links on Discord. Shout out to links again. He's getting all his shout outs in my streams. Yeah, because the next thing we're going to be looking to do here is going to be creating a service layer um, for the player. So we're going to create a player service.java, and that's going to handle things like fetching a, well, we'll start with the very basics. It's going to handle creating um, okay, so I believe I'm going to cut this live stream off. It is getting pretty long, but I'm going to cut this one short. I'm going to pick up tomorrow where I left off tonight, and we're going to dive into the service layer of this web application, and we will create a way to make a player profile, and then from there, I'm going to go to the Discord aspect. Um, and I'm going to make a way that we can create the Discord bot, make a way that we can invite it to our Discord server, and then a way that we'll be able to interact with this as a make a slash command where we can do register and have it create a player profile for us. And then from there, we'll work on a way to create locations, which will be the area around our map and activities that can be done. And we'll work on ways to further go about the game. We'll maybe might even throw together a Trello board, make a public Trello board that we can. Steven will be a moderator in there as well because he's one of my one of the developers that I've mentored over the last few years. And but yeah, tomorrow evening we will dive back into this and get a little further. I am going to be downloading and exporting this video and saving it, posting it on the Midnight Coders playlist. If anybody wishes to rewatch this, so it's been great. Thank you very much for everybody that's watched this. Honestly, this has been one of my favorite ones to do. It's gotten more attention than any of my other ones and more activity in the chat. Thank you very much, guys, for taking your time and chatting with me, talking with me. If you, again, if you like my teaching, my way of teaching, hit that subscribe button. I create a lot of Spring Boot and Java application videos. I intend to create more, getting a little more into it, a little more deeper. I'm very new to YouTube and video creation, so thank you very much for bearing with me while I do that and while I explore this new journey. Um, yeah, I might even throw together a video at some point just talking a little bit about myself, who I am, what my experiences are, what my background is, kind of letting you guys know who I am. Because I mean, to be honest, I got my first computer in '97. I went down the tech role, wondering how things were built, how things worked, how things were put together. I went down the rabbit hole of code in 2000. I opened up my first company in high school, 2008. It was a tech repair company. I opened up my second company in 2011. It was a freelancing um, software engineering company, as well as I started mentoring people in about 2015. I have a large background from cybersecurity to network administration to software development, distribution, front end, back end, full stack develop, whatever you want to call it. Um, I have over 20 years experience in 16 different programming languages, as well as 10 of those years have been in a professional um, environment. So I'm all for teaching anybody anything so long as somebody is willing to learn. If you're willing to learn, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button and join me. I'll be your mentor throughout your coding experience. Once again, thank you very much while I ramble on and talk. It's been great, but I'm going to check out. Have a good night, everybody, and thank you very much for sticking with me.